Welcome to Waukesha County GovCast, your source for what's happening in our vibrant community. I'm your host, Hillary Mintz, Public Information Officer.
And I'm Sean Lundy, Chief of Staff for Waukesha County Executive Paul Farrow.
Each episode, we dive into the latest news, community projects, and the initiatives shaping Waukesha County, where innovation meets public service. From in-depth discussions on local governance to county services, we're here to keep you informed and connected. So whether you're a resident, a business owner, or just curious about local government, join us for a closer look at the heart of your county. Well, welcome to GovCast. Today is Tuesday, November 11th. Hillary Mintz here with my co-host, Sean Lundy.
Hey, Hillary.
Hey, Sean. Well, today is Veterans Day, and it is a day that we honor all of our brave men and women who are still serving our country, those who have served, and those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. We will be taking a closer look at how Waukesha County helps our local veterans with our guest from the county's Veteran Services Office. And just last Friday, County Executive Paul Farrow spent the morning at St. John's Northwestern Military Academy in Delafield participating in their annual Veterans Day program. But here's what's happening in Waukesha County. This week, the county board will vote on the $389.2 million budget, and if passed, the county executive will sign the adopted budget. The sale of UW-Milwaukee Waukesha campus is progressing. The county plans to negotiate an offer to purchase with one of the proposers and bring that back to the county board in January for approval. Redevelopment plans include mixed residential use with blend style of the adjoining neighborhoods and helps the city close its housing need gap. The county airport is hiring seasonal part-time snowplow drivers to clear runways during winter. For more information, visit waukeshacounty.gov and click on the Careers tab at the top right. But now back to our guest, and as we mentioned, it's Veterans Day, and on GovCast, part of our mission is to educate and inform our residents and listeners about how county government operates, but also the programs and services it offers to our residents, and one of them being the Veterans Services Office. Our guest today is Jeremy Johns, our Veterans Services Officer. Welcome to GovCast, Jeremy.
Thank you, Hillary.
We're so glad you're here. But before we dive into the work you do for our local veterans, you're a veteran yourself. So tell us, what does Veterans Day mean to you?
It's a day dedicated to recognizing U.S. military service members who have been honorably discharged from active duty. They volunteered to defend the Constitution of the United States at the ultimate cost of their lives. Like Mother's Day and Father's Day, we ought to be grateful every day and express our gratitude as we encounter a veteran for their efforts in preserving our freedoms and protecting our country from outside threats as well as internal threats.
So could you paint a picture for us on just of how many veterans do we have here in Waukesha County? What does that landscape look like for your department? How many veterans do you serve on a yearly basis?
Okay, so from the current stats that we do have, it's about 19,000 veterans. And then last year we served 3,670 in some way, form, or fashion.
Oh.
So with all of those residents you just mentioned who are veterans, what are the specific services your office provides?
Well, we do veterans compensation claims to the Department of Veterans Affairs, property tax credits for those that are 100% permanent and totally disabled, non-service connected pension, survivor's pension, appeals regarding VA claims, medical enrollment to the VA healthcare system, burial claims, government markers and headstone applications, veteran status on Wisconsin driver's licenses, and provide emergency financial assistance. We offer direction and advocacy and represent veterans to their veterans law judge at the VA Board of Veterans Appeals.
So I have this kind of image in my head. I have two. I have my brother-in-law, my brother and my brother-in-law, both. One currently serving in the United States Air Force, one as a recent retiree. So I'm really familiar with the kind of what they go through on a daily basis, and also what their families go through, and what they're privileged to do as well throughout their years of service. And I think sometimes in people's heads it's really easy to think of the life of an active duty, someone serving in active duty. Maybe they're overseas and they're in a forward area or something like that. Or they're on some base here in the United States of America, or maybe they're on a carrier or something like that, depending upon, how it is or where it is that they're serving. And it is, there's so much more to that. The experience of my family members has been that every couple of years they're moving. I mean, that's really life in the military for the family, is that they're being uprooted and they're moving to maybe places across the world. So their experience isn't just the experience of, when they're serving in active duty, or we're imagining that someone is engaged in combat or something like that. The life of an active duty service person is super diverse. You've got accountants and IT people, and you have people serving in the infantry, and you have all their family members. So everyone is leaving that service, that time that they're serving our country, having had a different experience. And so I would imagine that it's quite the challenge for you to then, when they are coming to you from all those different kind of potential experiences, that they would have different issues that they're dealing with in the government. So how are you helping them work through all of those issues that that they're now experiencing, now that they're not in that sort of lifestyle?
Well, excuse me, most of us are veterans that work in the office, and have been on active duty and have experienced those moves, the loss of connections and networks. Some, not all veterans, struggle with reintegration into society and even home life in some cases. They have left their hometown and may have lost professional and the local community network, thus making professional integration much more difficult. There are also mental health concerns, and they don't fully understand where benefits are, if they are even entitled to benefits, and what those benefits are. But the biggest thing that I've realized is that you have an identity and you're protected for those years that you're on active duty. You are there to do your job that you've been trained to do, which means you don't have to worry about anything else. Finance could be, how you're going to get your stuff paid for. Housing is taken care of for you as well. Insurance, health insurance, you don't see a premium going out of your paycheck. You are taken care of so that you can perform your mission job. Your families are taken care of. It's amazing. E1's private to an O10 four-star general. They get housing taken care of. They also get everything packed up by movers at no cost to them and transferred to wherever they're supposed to be going. That doesn't happen on the civilian side. They now have to start thinking about housing, health insurance, better education if that's the case. They're also trying to reintegrate into a society that if they've lost their connections, their professional connections in the community, they're not just going to walk into a CEO job or a leadership position. They have to prove themselves again. Even though their resume be very extensive, the language isn't the same. I didn't know what a director and a manager and a supervisor was. I just knew that I was an officer. There was the non-commissioned officers. You had the privates, the people that did the frontline work. I did the executive level decisions for them. So it's completely different. And so they also have to learn a whole new language as well.
So do you see that as the biggest challenge coming back after being in active duty, is transitioning to other employment? Is that the biggest thing? And we're not talking about retirees, obviously. We're talking about people who were active duty and they're under retirement age. Is that the biggest challenge? Is that employment function?
It's pretty much. And then most of them will have education benefits depending on their active duty status, or if they went on the reserves and went on to active duty. They may transition straight into a university, which is good. But again, like the basic allowance for housing for the education part's not going to pick up all of the other costs. Loss of identity, there may be a loss of importance. You've got a general officer or a command sergeant major that has their own driver, vehicle, a placard on the front, doesn't have to obey certain things, and then they come into civilian society and they're just John Smith living next door to you. And nobody knew what they did, and it could really cause a mental health crisis for them.
And so when they transition out of that military service, are they having some exit interview and someone is saying, hey, remember, you can contact the VA as soon as you move back to Waukesha? Or how is that working for them?
Number one, it's getting better, and yes, they are. They go through TAP class, I forget what, transition planning, and then VA may send, it depends on their unit, they may have somebody like me, a veteran service officer that's accredited, to talk about, hey, you've been in for a day, and it could be up to 20 years, or whatever the deal is. There might be some disabilities you need to claim. You are entitled to compensation because I'll take myself for example. I broke my right ankle while I was doing physical training. And so I have range of motion limitation. I have arthritis. I can't run anymore.
We're not violating any HIPAA rules here, are we?
He's choosing to disclose
my information. So that would have limited me if I was in a manual labor position. So there's compensation to help with that, and it's tax-free.
The last time, Jeremy, you and I were doing this video and recording, we were taking a little ride out to the new VA clinic in Oconomowoc, which we're going to talk about in a second. But one thing you said to me that day, though, really stuck with me. You said that, as a veteran yourself, it makes such a huge difference when you're talking with other veterans. And can you talk about that a little bit more, about kind of how you break down those barriers and why that's so important?
You will always have something in common with another veteran. You have that camaraderie. As you go through basic training and your different individual trainings, you realize that they're your battle buddy, their brother or sister. They are supposed to be, they're trained to take care of you if you get shot on the battlefield, and you get shot on the battlefield to do the likewise. So you're trusting them with your lives. And so me going in to sit at the VA and then talking with a Vietnam veteran, I have no idea that they might be from a completely different state, total different personal interests, religious, whatever the deal is, but we have that in common, and there's a conversation that can be struck up. You break down those barriers. They do understand what you've been through, the moves, the potentially if you were in a combat situation, those kinds of aspects of life that other people won't be able to understand.
So even though you have that bond with your fellow veteran, have you found that some veterans hesitate to contact your office or to speak with you for various reasons? And if so, what would that be?
An example just came to my mind. There was a reserve 06 colonel, so he definitely had done at least 20 years. Most of it had been on active duty. That said, the reason why he was late for his appointment is that he'd been sitting in our parking lot. And I'm like, you kind of could have called. I could go out and talk and see what's going on. And he goes, he just couldn't understand. As his position, why is he applying for these benefits? And things are really good for him. And it was just very difficult. That was a different aspect that I had been used to. But on a day-to-day basis, we do see and hear of veterans talking about, I don't want to take benefits away from those that are more deserving, that they shouldn't be, that they aren't entitled, or they're absolutely incorrect. I've heard that, especially with like the Greatest Generation, World War II. They see somebody that has lost all their limbs, they're in a wheelchair, and they themselves are able to walk around, and it's not that. It's not the case. They could have a mental health disability that's going to limit them greatly than if they were the one that you see in the wheelchair. That's the stereotype of the disabled veteran. Other issues are getting health care. They've got private health care. Why use the VA? Well, if you don't use it, Congress does not allocate money to keep those programs running. So it's very important that they do at least get enrolled, take part in the annual physical, et cetera.
And I mentioned the new Oconomowoc VA clinic, which you and I were both in County Executive Faro, was at the grand opening not too long ago. I mean, that was a huge, that you talk about kind of bridging gaps. I mean, you have the VA hospital in West Dallas, and then there's one in Madison. correct? And so, like, nothing in between until now. And so, talk about that clinic, what it does, how you're, working with our staff there and veterans.
Okay, so it's what the Oconomowoc VA clinic is considered a community outreach-based clinic. I used to work at Veterans Health Administration, so I know the structure of that. And what they can do is offer not just urgent care, but they can do a primary care out there, mental health. They've got a licensed social worker as well as a psychologist out there to be able to conduct mental health appointments. They have a PharmD, so if you've got issues with pharmacy or medications and what you're taking, they can address that out there as well. There's women's health. Anything that's more specific, like an MRI or specialty clinics, then they'll have to send you down to Zablocki. The biggest advantage to it is they don't have to go into Zablocki. They don't have to drive the distance. It's for the Lake County area. It just happens to be in Waukesha, and it offers them a much shorter distance to drive in to get their care. But they can get that out there, and they're needed out there as well.
So what is your office's interaction with that clinic?
So we just started a couple of months ago going out and holding office hours out there. And we can do VA claims, we can do powers of attorney, et cetera. We also made sure that we had the automations to be able to look into somebody's claim and address any issues that they have, or get them an appointment and come in and speak with us. It's been synergistic, so we also work with the other county veteran service officers that are within that county, Lake County catchment area. We are trying to encourage our veterans, please use the clinic. It's brand new. The staff needs people to see to make sure that it remains relevant and important and funded. So they've seen an uptick on veterans going out there, as well as we've been not pushing, but if it's going to advantage them, please go out and get enrolled in there. That's not a problem.
So if you're a veteran who maybe you don't have a service-connected disability, and so you don't have a reason to go into that VA clinic, and maybe you are of the mindset that other people need the benefits more than maybe I do or something like that. So how are you reaching out as an organization, as an office, to maybe some of the younger veterans that are coming back who are like, listen, I'm not of retirement age. I don't feel like I need this health care. Maybe I have a job and you have health care through that job and you're not actively going to the VA, which, is their choice. How are you reaching out to those more recent veterans?
I've gone out and spoken with the posts, the clubhouses that are around the county. And of course, there's a lot of older veterans there. That's a social network for them in a way that generation socializes. For the younger veterans, it's been word of mouth. We do social media posts. It's basically has been a lot of word of mouth. They'll call in and say, I want to start a BDD claim. That's a benefits delivery upon discharge claim. They can do that while they're on active duty, and we're able to do that. We have the knowledge for that. A lot of people will call and ask about education, so we get them pointed in the right direction for that, either the Wisconsin GI Bill or their own VA education benefits. I'm seeing a lot of younger veterans going and doing their own claims, and I see a lot of mistakes.
Is that like kind of doing your own taxes?
It is.
Yeah.
It's also like being your own attorney in front of a judge. That's not advisable. You can actually harm yourself in that process. I've seen, and I've had to help defend veterans or talk about the evidence that they're going to need to avoid a reduction. Because by federal law, when you say disability, if it gets better, you can get reduced or the condition can be severed. We know the laws that are also implemented there that certain things can't be done by the VA. So if they've done their own claim, they get a denial or something. That's when they usually have sought us out, usually online through a search. I can go out and speak at any point in time to anybody, even if it's an individual. We can do house calls, especially if you're not ambulatory or you have limited transportation. We can go out and explain benefits, see what's going on with the whole picture.
So aside from maybe some people who are recently out of active duty and they're more recent veterans, I know that we have a lot of veterans who, when they did leave the service, they entered into law enforcement and kind of were able to transition some of those skills into life outside of the military. What has your experience been working with folks who have chosen a law enforcement profession?
Recently provided as a conduit to getting a police chief during our FEMA exercise in Maryland. I'm like, hey, got this call. Mom's trying to help out the veteran's son, and veteran wants to go into law enforcement. So I passed that on because he was in the jurisdiction. He was very interested. Police chief took it up, contacted the veteran. Makes it so much easier than being very intimidated going into a community. I just got back, and that was very helpful.
But also on the flip side, you work with law enforcement to, when they come into contact with veterans, right? Mm-hmm. To kind of bring you in. Could you explain a little bit of that partnership as well?
Yeah, it was part of HHS. We went out and did law enforcement rounds.
That's Health and Human Services for the kids playing at home.
Yeah, gotcha. Went out and spoke with the law enforcement, the police chief, and some of their deputies, and saying we can do presentations out at their departments at their asking at their convenience. We can also speak with the community if they want to set something up at one of the libraries or someplace to be able to speak with the community or community members. But we learned that, hey, you guys also have staff that are veterans. They also have staff that are actively in the reserves or National Guard. I was able to talk about some of the myths that they shouldn't be filing for a disability claim while they're still actively in the reserves, and that's actually opposite. We need that evidence to show that happened during that weekend or 2-week drill. We can put a claim in, and it's not going to harm you and your job as a reservist. So we were able to dispel that. But yeah, there are many veterans on staff. We can look at their claims that they've already filed for that, change power of attorney to something that we're accredited with, and increase the claim. We can talk about what they might be more entitled to.
And Jeremy, we kind of briefly breezed over your background. You told us you're a veteran, that 4-star general, right?
I wish, especially for the retirement pay. But yeah.
You've been with the county for how long?
It's now it will be November 2 solid years then.
Yeah. In that time, has there been any case that you've worked on or someone that you've worked with that just really stuck out to you, left a mark with you about, not to put you on the spot here, but just something that really stayed with you as far as, somebody came in, they needed help, and you met that need?
It's happened quite a bit, actually, and it's this one gentleman, I actually got a voluntary hug, he asked for permission, but we had been talking about, he was at a 90% disability rating, so without having that number off the top of my head, he might have been receiving about $2,500 tax-free per month in disability. The question was coming up that his mental health was affecting his ability to stay employed, and he was working in the mental health field. I kept looking through, asking him, I need this evidence. I need you to write this. I need anybody that lives with you to do a lay statement. And he calls me out of the blue, and he goes, hey, I've got some more stuff to drop off for you because we're going to do this individual unemployability claim, which is a very interesting process. I said, hey, wait, let's take a look. Oh, I forgot I did this. So check your bank account. Said there's about $40,000 in there. Did you know that? No. I said, you're now scheduler 100%. You don't have to worry about jumping through these hoops. They were able to see that your mental health had gotten worse, and you're straight up. Now you can, if you want to work, you can, but it was pretty amazing. So that does get to happen quite a bit. And then we also have the disappointments as well, but we know how to deal with that. We have the experience and background to deal with those appeals and finding that evidence that can help them out.
Well, Jeremy, thank you for serving our country, and thank you for serving our county here and our local veterans. And we hope to have you back on GovCast. But for everybody listening, thank you so much. Follow and subscribe to GovCast, and enjoy this Veterans Day and take some time to reflect. And we'll see you next time.